She gave herself to a stranger on a rainy night to forget the man who broke her. She left before sunrise, never expecting to see him again. 5 years later, she walks into a job interview and looks into the same eyes. But this time, she's not alone. She's carrying the truth in the eyes of her twin sons. Welcome, soul seekers, to Hearts of the Rich, where every luxury hides a secret and every fortune comes with a price. If you're watching this right now, I believe you're meant to be here. Because this isn't just a story about a one-night mistake. It's about identity, regret, the haunting power of chance, and the kind of love that leaves a mark long before you know its name. So if you've ever wondered what would happen if the past came back when your heart finally healed, subscribe to Hearts of the Rich and like this video right now to help others discover stories that matter for the heart, for healing, and for the greater good. And tell me in the comments, do you believe a single night can change a life forever? Type "one night changed everything" if you feel this one already. Now take a breath. Let's begin. She had sworn she'd never do something like this. Not her, not Amelia Hart. And yet here she was, soaked to the bone under a broken street lamp, heels in her hand, mascara bleeding beneath her eyes, the city spinning around her like a carousel of bad decisions and deeper regrets. The rain had started hours ago, but she hadn't gone home. She couldn't. Not after what had happened. Not after what she'd seen. The man she had loved for 4 years, the man she'd almost married, had kissed someone else. Not behind closed doors. Not in shadow. But in full view of the ballroom, where she was supposed to say yes to him tonight. So she ran. No purse, no plan, just pain. That's when she saw him. He was standing under the awning of a closed cafe. Tall, still, like he'd been waiting for someone or nothing. A coat half-buttoned, dark hair dripping from the storm. No umbrella, no phone, just eyes. Eyes that didn't ask questions when she stumbled into the light. Eyes that didn't judge the smudged makeup or the torn hem of her dress. Eyes that met hers like they had already been broken too. Neither of them spoke. She just stepped forward, and he didn't move. The rain was cold, but his hand was warm when she reached for it. And that was all it took. They didn't exchange names. The hotel was just around the corner. One of those places meant for people who didn't want to be found. The room was small, quiet, clean. A single bed, a lamp she never turned on. He didn't ask what she was running from. She didn't ask why his voice trembled when he whispered, "Are you sure?" She just nodded, closed her eyes, and for one night, she let herself disappear. No past, no future, just a stranger who held her like he knew how much it hurt to be unloved. She woke up before dawn. He was still asleep, a soft crease between his brows, one arm draped across the pillow where she had once been. She stared for a moment too long, chest aching. Then she dressed and slipped out the door. Amelia never told anyone about that night. She never tried to find him, never saw his face clearly again, until 5 years later, when she applied for a job at Easton Holdings, desperate, overqualified, and completely out of options. She had just put her 5-year-old twin boys in a daycare after years of scraping by, and she needed this job more than she'd ever needed anything. The position? Junior executive assistant to the company's elusive CEO, the man behind the glass tower she'd always seen in headlines, but never once imagined she'd come face to face with. Until the elevator opened, until she stepped into his office, and until she looked up into the face of the man she had slept with 5 years ago, and realized he was her boss. He didn't react at first. No flicker of recognition, no dramatic pause, just a crisp nod as he gestured for her to sit, his voice sharp and efficient. Amelia Hart, graduate of NYU, dual degree in finance and strategic operations. You worked under Colin Reyes at Graff and Minner before the layoffs. She nodded, her lips dry. Yes, sir. Why are you applying for an assistant position with that kind of experience? I have kids, she answered simply. The silence between them stretched for a second too long. His fingers tapped once on the file in front of him. And no mention of a partner? She held his gaze. No. He glanced back down at her resume, his expression unreadable. Like always. CEO eyes, trained to assess risk, not emotion. But as he turned a page, something strange happened. He paused, for a fraction of a second. then looked at her again, and this time his stare lingered. Not cold, not calculating, just unsettled, like he'd seen a shadow of something he couldn't place. Amelia stayed perfectly still, because if he remembered, even a flicker, it would all fall apart. She hadn't seen his full face that night. The lights had been low, the air heavy with rain and unspoken grief. But now, under the sterile glow of this office, there was no doubt. It was him, same eyes, same voice, and now he was her boss. "I'll have HR contact you this afternoon," he said finally, standing. "You'll start Monday if your background clears." She stood too. "Thank you, Mr. Easton." He blinked. "Liam." She hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you, Liam." She barely made it to the elevator before her knees buckled. Her reflection in the chrome doors looked like a woman holding her breath underwater. Twins. His twins. She hadn't even known she was pregnant until 6 weeks after that night. And by then, she had no name, no number, no trail to follow. All she remembered was a scar on his collarbone and the sound of rain on a hotel window. Now she had a name. Now he had a company. And a future that didn't include a past mistake. Her boys, Mason and Miles, were everything. Her light. Her reason. But if he found out, if this world found out, everything could change. He could fight for custody. Or worse, try to own them the way rich men own silence. So she made a decision. She would take the job. She would smile. And she would protect her sons, even if it meant lying through her teeth. But Liam couldn't shake her face. Long after she left, he found himself staring out the window of his 50th floor office, coffee in hand, mind somewhere else. Her voice, her eyes. There was something about the way she had looked at him, like she was seeing a ghost. That night, the hotel. He hadn't thought about it in years. But now, pieces of memory returned. Rain. A woman in a torn dress. The way her breath hitched when he touched her shoulder. The sound of her name, maybe? No, she hadn't said it. She never said it. But the way she had felt in his arms. It haunted him. He sat down, pulled up her file again. Amelia Hart, 31, no known spouse. Twin sons, age 5. His blood went cold. 5? The math punched him in the chest. Don't be ridiculous, he told himself. It's not possible. It was one night. You don't even remember her face. But still, he stood, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and whispered, "Amelia Hart, who are you?" It was supposed to be routine, just a drop-off. Amelia had been called in early for a quarterly executive summit, and the nanny had canceled last minute. She couldn't find anyone else, not with 2 kids and a 40-minute notice, not on her salary, not with her history. So she brought them, just for a few minutes. She told them to sit quietly in the break room, gave them their tablets, promised lollipops, promised everything would be okay if they stayed quiet. And they had, for almost 15 minutes, until the cookie tray appeared, until Miles, the braver twin, wandered into the hallway chasing a sugar high and ran smack into a man with polished shoes and a portfolio full of merger documents. Liam, the CEO, looked down, startled, blinking at the boy now sitting on the carpet with chocolate smeared across his cheek and a grin wide enough to melt skyscrapers. The boy looked up, completely unfazed. Liam raised a brow. I'm 5. Clearly. I like cookies. That's a solid life choice. Then came a second one. Mason, quieter, peeked around the corner, more cautious. But when he saw his brother talking to the tall stranger, he ran straight to him, throwing his arms around his twin's waist like a human anchor. And that's when it hit Liam. The eyes. 2 pairs. Bright slate gray. Just like his. His chest locked. He knelt, slowly, and studied them both. Not like a stranger, but like a man reading a letter written in a language he hadn't seen in years. The smaller one, Mason, blinked up at him. "You have sad eyes," he said. Liam flinched. "Doi." "Yeah," Miles added. "Like mommy sometimes." He froze. "Mommy." His throat tightened. Before he could ask another question, a voice sliced through the hallway. "Boys!" Amelia. She rushed forward, breathless, panic in her eyes as she saw them, both standing beside him. "Mr. Easton," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. They weren't supposed to." "It's fine," he said too quickly. "No harm done." But his voice cracked, just slightly. She noticed. She grabbed the twins gently by the shoulders, guiding them back toward the break room with a too calm voice and a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Say goodbye, boys." "Bye, Mr. Sad Eyes," Miles waved. Liam didn't move. He just stood there, the hallway suddenly colder. Because in that moment, with one word, one glance, one impossible reflection staring back at him, something inside him shifted. He didn't know the truth yet, but his heart did. It was screaming. That night, he couldn't sleep. Not because of the market, or contracts, or the 10-figure merger sitting on his desk, but because of two boys who had his eyes, and a woman who had left him with a memory he wasn't sure was a dream. He poured a drink, sat alone in the dark, and whispered their names. Mason, Miles. His hand trembled as he lifted the glass to his lips, because no matter how hard he tried to ignore it, some part of him already knew. He hadn't just let her leave that night. He had let them leave with her. The photo wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't in her resume, not on her LinkedIn, not on any social profile Liam's assistant had flagged during the background sweep. It was on her desk, tucked into a pale ceramic frame, just behind a monitor, a picture only a mother would keep visible without thinking twice. And maybe that's what made it so dangerous. He hadn't meant to notice it. He'd stopped by late, hours after most of the team had gone home, needing a file she'd taken notes on during that afternoon's meeting. Her office light was still on, but she wasn't inside. Just the quiet hum of her screensaver and the faint scent of citrus and something else he couldn't place. Something gentle. He stepped in, scanning the desk. Organized, clean, minimal. Then his eyes landed on the frame, and everything inside him stopped. Two little boys, standing at the edge of a playground, holding hands. One with a scraped knee, one with a lollipop stuck to his shirt. Both of them laughing. But that wasn't what hit him. It was their eyes. His eyes. And it wasn't just color. It was shape, tilt. That curious, cautious look Mason carried. The mischief in Miles. He staggered back a step before he knew what he was doing. Sat in the chair. Stared. Amelia hadn't told him. Not a word. But how could she? He'd let her walk out of that hotel room without a name. Without a trace. And now she was raising his children. Alone. He gripped the edge of the desk, jaw clenched, breathing shallow. 5 years. 5 years of silence. 5 years of not knowing. And now the truth was sitting in a 5-inch photo frame, next to a coffee mug and a post-it note that said pick up almond milk. He heard footsteps in the hallway and barely had time to stand before she appeared in the doorway. She froze. So who did he? Their eyes met, and she knew, by the way his hand was still resting on the photo, by the look on his face, disbelief, betrayal, something softer hiding underneath the wreckage. You found it, she whispered. He didn't move. You knew, he said quietly. You knew it was me. I didn't, she said. Not until the interview. And by then, she looked away. I didn't want to ruin anything. I didn't want to take anything from you. They're mine. It wasn't a question. Her breath caught. Yes. Silence swallowed the room whole. He turned the photo around, staring again. I don't even know what I missed, he said, voice shaking. First steps. First words. I didn't know how to find you, she said softly. And even if I had, what would I have said? That I slept with a stranger, and now I had twins with no name to put on their birth certificate. His chest rose, fell, and then, quieter than she expected. Why didn't you tell me after? Because I was scared, she said, and because I thought maybe that night was all it was supposed to be. He met her gaze, and now, she blinked and whispered, now I don't know what to believe anymore. He didn't show up at work the next day. For a man like Liam Easton, that was unheard of. No missed meetings. No didas. He was punctual, composed, surgically efficient. But not that day. That day, he stood outside a modest walk-up in the East Village, staring at a navy blue door with peeling paint and a crooked number 9. Her door. He had the address from HR. She hadn't even hidden it, probably because she didn't think he'd ever come. But now he was here, with shaking hands and a heart that hadn't stopped pounding since the night before. He didn't bring a lawyer. He didn't bring questions. He brought nothing, except everything he'd never said. He knocked once, Then again. Footsteps. Then silence. Then the door opened. She was barefoot, in a faded tee and leggings, her hair tied up messily. No makeup. The most human he'd ever seen her. And maybe the most beautiful. She froze when she saw him. Her body half-turned, shielding the living room behind her like instinct. "I didn't expect you," she said. "I didn't expect any of this. Why are you here?" He looked down, exhaled. "I don't know what I'm doing," he said, "but I think I need to try." For a long moment, she just stared at him. No fight, no fear, just the slow, heavy weight of 5 years settling in the space between them. Then came a small voice behind her. "Mommy." A boy peeked around her leg. "Mason." His eyes widened when he saw Liam. "You're the cookie man." Liam's lips twitched. "I am." The boy stepped forward. "You got more cookies?" "I might," Liam said softly. "Is that Daddy?" The question cut through the air like a blade. Amelia's eyes welled instantly. She dropped to her knees, pulling Mason gently to her side. I told you, sweetheart," she whispered. "You don't have a daddy right now. But he looks like me." Liam didn't move, didn't breathe. Miles appeared next, dragging a dinosaur by its tail. "Can he come inside?" Amelia looked up at Liam, then slowly, painfully stepped aside. He walked in. The apartment was small, warm, lived in. Crayon drawings taped to the fridge. A laundry basket full of superheroes. A faint scent of peanut butter and lavender. "Home." He crouched, hands on his knees, as both boys stared at him like he was a science experiment. "You really don't remember us?" Miles asked. "No," Liam said, voice breaking. "But I'm hoping maybe you can help me start." They sat on the floor together, built a tower from blocks. It collapsed 4 times. He didn't mind. He laughed. He didn't remember the last time he laughed. Amelia watched from the kitchen, arms crossed tightly, heart trembling. This wasn't part of the plan. She had learned to do it all herself, scraped knees, fevers, rent. She had taught them to be okay without a father. And now, there he was, the man she thought was a stranger, piecing together a tower, brick by brick, the same way he was starting to piece together himself. One question burned her chest. Could he stay? Not just for today, not just for guilt, but for them, for real. The sun was already beginning to dip behind the buildings when he stood to leave. Mason was asleep on the couch, curled into a ball with a plastic T-Rex tucked under one arm. Miles had passed out mid-sentence, his head resting against Liam's shoulder, mouth open, a trail of cookie crumbs still on his cheek. Liam hadn't moved in 20 minutes, just held him, quiet, still, like he'd known this feeling all his life and only just remembered it now. He carefully shifted the boy onto a blanket, brushed a curl from his forehead, and stood, suddenly unsure of what to do with his hands. Amelia had barely spoken in the last hour. She'd sat in the corner of the room with a cup of tea that had gone cold, watching. Not judging, not interfering, just watching. Now she rose as he reached the door. She didn't say goodbye, and he didn't know if he had the right to say anything at all. But something in him, something fragile and terrified and new, made him pause. He turned. "I'd like to come back," he said. Her expression didn't shift. "Tomorrow," he added. Still no change. But then, after a moment, she gave the faintest nod. "Okay." One word. Soft. Real. He didn't smile. Didn't push. Just nodded back, stepped into the hallway, and let the door close gently behind him. He didn't sleep that night. Not really. He sat on his balcony in a city that had never felt lonelier, staring out at lights that used to mean ambition and now meant distance. He had an empire, 500 employees, 4 active acquisitions in motion. But all he could think about was whether Mason would remember the sound of his voice tomorrow, whether Miles would still want to sit beside him at breakfast, and whether Amelia, the woman who had every right to shut him out forever, would still open the door again. He whispered their names under his breath like prayers, and then he did something he hadn't done in over a decade. He took out a photo, the one from her desk, made a copy, and placed it beside the framed award on his nightstand, right where his ambition used to live. The next day, he returned. Amelia opened the door without hesitation this time. No makeup, no walls, just tired eyes and quiet strength. "Hi," she said. "Hi." He stepped inside, The boys ran to him before he even set down his coat. And just like that, it became their rhythm. Days turned into weeks. He came for breakfast, for bedtime, for early walks to preschool. He helped with homework, took them to a dentist appointment, showed up with pancakes on rainy Saturdays. He didn't try to fix anything. He didn't try to take over. He just showed up every single time. Amelia didn't tell him she was afraid, but she was, because no one had ever shown up without conditions. Not for her, not for the boys. But Liam was different now. He wasn't a CEO when he walked through that door. He was a man learning how to be a father, and maybe, slowly, learning how to be something else. Someone who stayed. But not everyone was happy about it, because word travels fast in the world of the rich. And one person had just found out the truth. Someone who had everything to lose if Liam gave his heart to the woman who'd once walked away without saying goodbye. Her name was Sienna Vale. Gorgeous, dangerous, the kind of woman who walked into a room and made people stop breathing. She had once been Liam's everything, or so the tabloids said. Heiress to a family-run fashion empire, she and Liam had graced magazine covers, galas, Forbes' most powerful couples list. They were beautiful, photographed, watched, until they weren't. He ended it 2 years ago, quietly, without scandal. No one knew why, but Sienna did. He stopped loving the idea of a future she could build with him, and started wanting something real. And now, after months of silence, she was back, because she'd heard the rumors. Whispers that the coldest CEO on the East Coast had gone soft, that he was spending time in a low-income zip code, that he had been seen walking with a woman and 2 boys who looked too much like him to be coincidence. Sienna didn't like to lose, and she never shared. She appeared at the office without an appointment, sweeping past the front desk like she still owned the place. Liam was reviewing a financial report when the door opened. He didn't look up. "Elise," I said, "no interruptions." "It's not Elise." His pen stilled. He glanced up and froze. "Sienna." She smiled, the kind that always meant something was about to break. "Miss me?" He stood slowly. "What do you want?" "Straight to business." "That's new. Or maybe not so new anymore for what I hear." He narrowed his eyes. "What are you talking about?" She leaned against the desk, dragging her manicured nails across the wood. "Her name is Amelia, isn't it?" His jaw tightened. "I hear you're spending quite a bit of time with her, and 2 very photogenic little boys." "I don't owe you anything." "No, you don't," she said sweetly. "But you owe your board, and your investors, and your public image. And what do you think they'll say when they find out the face of Easton Holdings, the man who built an empire on calculated decisions, fathered 2 children with a woman he met in a one-night stand, and then kept it hidden for 5 years?" He didn't blink, didn't flinch. She stepped closer. "I'm offering you a way out," she whispered. "Come to the gala with me next month. Smile for the cameras. Pretend you're still mine. One night, one picture. That's all I need to shut down the rumors and keep your reputation intact. And if I don't," her smile faded, "I'll leak everything. The hotel footage, her employment file, the birth records, the matching DNA." He stared at her, then walked slowly around the desk until he stood inches away. "You leak anything," he said, voice cold, "and I'll bury your father's company in litigation for the next 10 years. Her eyes flashed. "You'd hurt me?" "No," he said. "I'll protect them." She hesitated, just a flicker, then scoffed. "I never took you for the sentimental type." "I wasn't," he said, "until I met my sons." And with that, he opened the door. "Get out." That night, he stood outside Amelia's apartment, hands shaking, because for the first time since this began, the danger was real. The world would find out, and he didn't know if she was ready. He didn't know if he was, but she deserved the truth. And this time, he wouldn't let her be blindsided. He knocked. She opened. He looked at her with eyes full of fear and love, and said the words he swore he'd never say again. "I need to tell you something." He stood in her doorway again. Same shoulders, same hands tucked in the pockets of that same storm-colored coat. But this time, his eyes weren't guarded. They were afraid. "Come in," she said before he even asked. He stepped inside, quiet as a man holding glass in his chest. The twins were already asleep. She had just finished cleaning up their puzzle pieces, still half assembled on the floor. The space smelled like cinnamon waffles and warmth. But the tension? It was sharp. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low. She nodded, waited, and so he did. Everything. From Sienna's unannounced visit to the threat of exposure, to the gala invitation that came laced with blackmail. He didn't spin it, didn't soften it. "I told her no," he said. "But she's not finished. She's going to try to make this public. Twist it into something that looks like scandal. And you're warning me because—" He met her eyes. "Because I'm not going to let her blindside you. Not like I did 5 years ago." She exhaled. Slow, shaky. "And the company? The board? I don't care. You built it. I'll build again. But I won't rebuild trust with you if I let someone else tell her story first." Her expression softened, just a little. She poured him a glass of water and sat across from him on the edge of the couch. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, she asked, "Why now?" He looked up. "What do you mean? Why are you fighting for them now, when you didn't even know they existed a month ago?" His answer came without pause. "Because I wasn't a father before," he said. "But the second I saw them, I knew I couldn't be anything else." Her breath caught. He leaned forward, hands clasped. "And I wasn't a man worth trusting before. Not really. But if you give me the chance to be now." She stood, walked toward the hallway. For a moment, he thought she was leaving, but she didn't. She came back with a small photo album, cracked at the corners, worn at the edges, and placed it on the coffee table between them. It was filled with 5 years of memories he'd never seen. First steps, finger paint, crayon cards on Father's Day with a blank space where a name should have been. Tears slipped down his cheek before he even noticed them. She didn't wipe them, but she didn't look away either. And then, for the first time since they'd spoken the truth aloud, she reached out. Her hand covered his, and she whispered, "You could stay tonight." Not her bed, not her arms, but in their world. For the first time, she wasn't asking him to leave. She was asking him to try. The invitation arrived anyway. Ivory cardstock, gold trim, the kind of envelope no one dared throw away. The Vancroft Gala, the most photographed night of the year. The unofficial Oscars for the elite. Liam Easton had attended every year for the past decade. Always with someone on his arm. Always perfectly pressed. Perfectly practiced. But this year, everything was different. Because this year, the world was whispering. The media had already caught hints. A woman, 2 kids, unconfirmed sightings. The board was nervous. And Sienna? She was waiting. Waiting for him to show up alone. To prove she still controlled the narrative. To remind Amelia that the rich never choose the quiet girl. Now when the spotlight burns. He almost didn't go. Amelia told him he didn't have to. "You don't owe anyone anything," she said. "Not the press. Not your shareholders. Not me." But that wasn't true. He owed the boys a future they wouldn't have to hide from. And he owed her the truth, not behind closed doors, but in front of the very world that once told her she wasn't enough. He stepped out of the black car alone. Not in a tux. In a black suit, no tie, sleeves cuffed. No Sienna. No script. Just him. Flashbulbs exploded the second his shoes hit the carpet. "Liam, over here. Who's the mystery woman? Is it true you have kids?" He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He walked straight to the edge of the carpet, where the microphones waited, and did what no one expected. He took out his phone, opened a photo. Mason and Miles, sitting on the kitchen floor, covered in pancake syrup and giggling like the world belonged to them. He held it up. "These are my sons," he said. The crowd gasped. "And the woman who raised them alone for 5 years is the strongest person I've ever met." More flashes. Murmurs. "Schalt." He kept going. "I made mistakes. I let someone walk away because I didn't believe in second chances. I won't make that mistake again." One last flash. One last silence. And then he turned, stepped off the carpet, and disappeared into the car again, leaving the city spinning behind him. Amelia was waiting on the couch. We walked through the door. She didn't ask what happened. She had seen the clip already. It was everywhere. Live. Viral. Breaking news. He sat beside her, quieter than usual. She looked at him. "You just told the world everything," she said. He nodded. No more hiding. Her voice was soft. "Are you sure?" He reached for her hand. "I'm sure of you." She leaned into his chest. And for the first time since that rainy night 5 years ago, they both knew they weren't running anymore. It arrived in a manila envelope. No return address, no courier name, just a handwritten tag clipped to the front. To Liam Easton, deliver upon confirmed parenthood. He almost didn't open it. It had been 2 weeks since the gala. 2 weeks since the press turned from scandal to fascination. 2 small boys with their father's eyes and a mother who didn't ask for fame. Liam had pulled out of 2 corporate deals. He'd taken leave from the company for the first time in 15 years. The world whispered, but he didn't care. Because every morning he woke up to Miles jumping on his chest, to Mason asking if he could help pour cereal without spilling, to Amelia's hand finding his under the table at breakfast. Was worth it. And now, this letter. He sat alone at the kitchen counter, sun bleeding across the marble as the boys napped in the next room. He opened the envelope. Inside, a single sheet. Cream paper. Faint scent of cologne and old ink. His father's handwriting. He hadn't seen it since the funeral. Liam, if you're reading this, then I didn't fail you entirely. I left this with my lawyer years ago, with instructions to deliver if you ever became a father. Not a CEO, not a partner, a father. Because this company, this world, taught us both that legacy means control. But I was wrong. Legacy is what you leave behind in the hearts you love, not the hands you rule. Don't be like me. Don't miss the years that matter. Don't trade first steps for first quarter profits. If you found someone who makes you slow down, love her. If you have children, hold them tighter than your ambition. And if there's still a broken piece inside you, let them be the ones to heal it. You are always more than what I raised you to be. Be that man now. Dad. Liam didn't cry. He just folded the letter, set it gently in the drawer beside the photo of his sons, and then walked to the living room, where Amelia was curled up, eyes closed, hair messy, a soft blanket draped over her legs. He kissed her forehead. She stirred, smiled without opening her eyes. "You okay?" she whispered. "Better," he said. "I just needed to remember where I came from." She opened her eyes now. "And where's that?" He sat beside her, pulled her into his arms, and whispered, "Right here." That weekend, he proposed. No headlines, no cameras, just a playground, 2 boys on a swing set, and a simple gold band. She said yes before he even finished the sentence. Because this wasn't about titles anymore. It was about time, about family, about a love that had survived mistakes, silence, and 5 long years apart, and somehow still came home. The sun was rising slow over the East River. Birdsong filtered through the windows of a home that had once been an apartment, then a hiding place, and now a haven. Liam stood barefoot in the kitchen, pouring pancake batter in dinosaur shapes onto a sizzling skillet. His tie hung loose around his neck. His hair was a little longer now, softer. He still looked like a CEO, but one who knew how to put the phone down. Mason sat at the table with a comic book spread wide across his arms. Miles was drawing something on a folded napkin, tongue between his teeth, concentration fierce. Amelia stepped in, sleepy and radiant, wearing one of his shirts and holding her hand to her stomach. It had started to show, just a little, but enough for the boys to notice. Enough to make Liam beam every time she entered the room. 10 minutes, she said. Then you're going to be late for your speech. He smirked. It's my company. I'll tell them I was trapped under 2 small humans and a pile of syrup. Miles held up the napkin. I made you something, he said proudly. Liam bent down. It was a drawing, stick figures. 4 of them. 1 tall, 1 in tie. 1 with pigtails. 2 small ones holding hands. And at the top, in crooked, uneven letters, Daddy's team. Liam swallowed hard. Is that us? Miles nodded. And that's the baby, he said, pointing to a blob with legs. We don't know her yet, but I think she's a girl. Mason leaned in. We're going to teach her how to ride bikes and how to throw pancakes at Daddy. Amelia laughed. Liam knelt beside them, his hands on both their backs. He didn't speak right away. He just looked at the napkin, then at the boys, then at the woman who had once disappeared before sunrise, and gave him everything he never knew how to ask for. Family, not legacy, not bloodline, but love, real and loud and messy and honest. He kissed their foreheads, one by one, then stood, grabbed his suit jacket, and walked toward the door. But not before turning back. You know what? They looked up. He smiled. I think Daddy's team just became my whole world. And somewhere far above them, in a tower built by ambition and now run with heart, the company name hadn't changed, but the man behind it had. Forever. Thank you for staying until the very end. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that love can be messy, unexpected, and still so worth it, then I hope you'll carry this one with you. Because sometimes the most life-changing moments come from the nights we were never supposed to remember, and the people we were never supposed to see again. If you felt that, you're not alone. Subscribe to Hearts of the Rich and like this video right now, so more stories like this find the hearts that need them. And don't forget to explore the Hearts of the Rich playlist, where every episode is a journey through love, loss, and redemption behind closed doors. Tell me in the comments, what part of this story stayed with you the most? I read every one. Until next time, take care of your heart, and never stop believing in second chances.